So I can have a profound admiration for somebody. If I met him today and I see him sitting on the table for lunch, and the waiter come and serve him water, and he don't even look into the guy and not say thank you, I'm gonna get an impression from the guy. This guy is a very smart, very important, very rich, but he don't have gratitude in his heart. He not thank you for the guy who give him water. He thinks he needs to be served without saying thank you.
Rickson, it's so great to see you. Thanks for joining me back on the podcast today.
My pleasure, Ryan. Good to see you, my friend.
Yes, it is. It seems like a lot has changed in the last several years from the first time that you were on, and I imagine that you could not have considered or thought about the health diagnosis that you've been dealing with over the past. How long has it been since you were diagnosed with Parkinson's?
About 4 years.
4 years. Okay. Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
And is it? Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a surprise for me, but I feel like it's important to adapt very quickly to the new reality and deal with in a positive way.
Yeah. You said it wasn't a surprise. Is this something that you've been dealing with or noticed signs of something happening for a while now, or what?
Yeah, little tremors and a little different on the neurologic system. And finally I got diagnosed, and from that on I started dealing with Parkinson in a very, very positive way, because if I was following only what the doctors say, I was just taking medicine and doing a little physiotherapy. But I'm looking for different ways to dealing with in a more appropriate way, in a more like strategic way. So I stopped eating meat, I stopped drinking beer and wine, and I fast. I do supplements a lot. I do physiotherapy more than what I should. So I'm dealing with my new opponent in a very clear, positive way. My idea is to beat Parkinson. I'm not sure if it's possible, but I'm confident enough and positive enough to deal my life in a way for me to relearn how to live and relearning habits and making myself more motivated to teach the invisible Jiu-Jitsu, which make me feel like great, inspire me very deeply in terms of service to others, in terms of giving a feedback, which is possible for anyone to build up on and be positive and to try to self-healing yourself. So I'm happy with, even though the situation is surprising and it's not exactly what I want, when you have a problem, you have to resolve the problem. When you have a problem who has no solution, you have to accept the problem and move on. So,
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Keep going.
In terms of acceptance, I feel like it's part of the tools of the spiritual warrior to accept, to be patient, to be hopeful, to be faithful. So I'm in a good path to keeping myself as a spiritual warrior.
Yeah, and I imagine you've got to take some level of comfort and solace in knowing that regardless of the outcome, you are going to, I have no doubt of this, just based on the limited way that I know you, have positive impact on those other people who are impacted by Parkinson's, where it's not just, hey, take this pill every day for the rest of your life and hopefully you can live a long, happy, successful life. But here are some key things that you can do that you can take control of over. And I imagine you being at the forefront of that probably brings you some level of purpose in the midst of a very, to put it mildly, uncomfortable situation.
Yes, I always have the purpose to defeat my opponents through Jiu-Jitsu. I always have the purpose to represent the art. And as a martial artist, I feel like quitting is not an option. And I wish people, average Joes all over the world, can feel like they can think as a champions, they can think as a warriors, to deal with their emotions, to deal with their problems, to deal with their stresses. So it's possible through visualization, through strategy, to hope, to faith, through those elements, through those invisible tools, through breathing, So those invisible tools can really put you in a positive aspect of life. And even though you have problems, managing those problems, live with those problems, be capable to suppress those problems, you should be committed to do that. So I'm happy to inspire people in a sense where, it's always good, it's good to work on the present moment, not thinking about the failure, but thinking always about the possibilities to success.
When you were diagnosed with Parkinson's, did your doctors have anything to say as far as your lifestyle as a fighter, as a martial artist, that may have contributed to that? Or is Parkinson's a matter of genetics or random unfortunate luck? How does that happen?
Yeah, I never been explained what's the reasons I get that, because
Mm,
I'm not sure if there's any correlation with sports, with damaging, like getting bang on your head, concussions.
right.
I'm not sure if it's related to that. What I'm sure is when I get diagnosis, I felt like I have to be positive about it. I have to start to deal with this like I always live in Jiu-Jitsu, because a lot of things is the fear, the anticipation, the stress. All those are subject to change depending on choices. So my choice is to deal with in a very clear way, in a very positive way with the problem, and be able to do everything in my hands to resolve the problem. So I'm not there just waiting for the problem. I'm not there passively. I'm there patiently. So patience is different than passivity, because patience, you wait for the time to strike, or the time to do whatever you have to do. Passivity, you lost opportunities to deal with the reality. So I'm patiently waiting for whatever I have to do and be positive about overcoming the situation.
I think that's a really important distinction, the difference between passivity and patience, because those two terms, or at least the way we behave, gets conflated quite often.
Yeah.
Somebody who's not doing anything at all about their life to improve themselves might say, well, I'm just being patient. Another
Yeah.
one that I often hear is, if it's God's will. It's like, well, God wants you to be active. Yeah,
Yes.
sure, he wants you to be happy, but he also wants you to do your work too. And
Yes.
sometimes people shirk that responsibility, or in the way that I look at it is put that on God when they're not willing to do anything themselves.
Definitely. I agree with you 100%, because passivity, you just lost momentum. You putting somebody else your responsibilities. But
Mm,
patience is give you the sense of the perfect timing to strike. Like the lion behind the bush waiting for the zebra, getting to the striking distance for him to make the kill. So he's there patiently waiting the sharp moment for him to succeed. So I'm patient in regard to the outcome. I'm not distressed. I'm not uh, overwhelmed with the situation. I try to just be calm and comfortable with whatever I got, getting the opportunity to excel in my benefit. So if I need a treatment, if I need a doctor I have to see in China, I go there. So whatever I have to do to be sharp on the problem, to be fast on my results, I will do. I'm not passive. I'm just patient.
yeah. I see this on the mats. A good friend of mine and fellow co-host with this podcast, his name is Kip Sorensen, and he's a jiu-jitsu black belt. He's been training for about 14 years, if I remember correctly, maybe a little bit less, maybe 12 years or so. But he's really long limbed. He's got these long arms and these long legs, and he's very technical. And when I roll with him, he's thinking 9, 10, 11, 12 moves out ahead. And so he'll do something where I think, oh, I've got him. And just when I think I've got him, he does what he meant to do
Yeah.
3 minutes ago that he was teeing me up for the entire time, but he was patiently waiting for me to fall into his trap. And I think
Yes.
that illustrates perfectly not only the concept you're talking about, but if I understand correctly, the concept of invisible jujitsu.
Definitely. Yes. And what I feel like amazing about jiu-jitsu is the fact you can have any problems in your lap. when you get into the mat to practice jiu-jitsu, you have to leave all the problems outside. You have to live the moment. You have to be present. You have to be sharp in your decisions, because if you're not present, if you're not living the moment, you just lost very quickly if your mind is in a different spot. So something we need today, the humanity as a whole, is to be present, because we pretty much dehumanize ourselves through the internet, to the robotics, to the websites. So the idea of living the present, give you a sense of now, which impairs your ability to support your ability to respond the now immediately. And that's a very important aspect for martial arts. Be positive in your life. You become more present, more sensitive to the reality, and be able to respond that more accurate.
How do you personally manage that? Because I imagine with your health situation, it would be easy for fear to creep in. But I also imagine throughout your life, as you're preparing for a fight, obviously the fear creeps in. There's real world consequences to everything you've done in life. That fear has to creep in. How do you personally manage that when you start to get these negative voices, or the voice of doubt, or all of the toxic thoughts that I know are likely to come up? I'm sure they are.
Yeah, fear for me, I understand as my best friend, because prepare me to the situation which I'm not prepared for. So fear give me the sense of take care of myself, or not putting my hand there because it's going to get hot, or don't go this way without the gasoline enough to make the whole trip. So fear prepare me for the negative outcomes. So, but the courage make me control fear and put the fear on the shelf where I need it. So as I prepare myself for a fight, I'm afraid to lose from my possible opponent. So I will study strategically what he's do good, what he's do bad, what are my chances here, my chances there. So I'm using the fear to inspire me to be at my best. I cannot just be overconfident. But at the moment I'm in the locker room, I decide to change my mode, to not be afraid anymore, and to be just commit to do what I have to do. And at this point, fear becomes nothing for me. I control fear, and my courage take over, and I go for whatever I have to do. Because the mindset give you the chance to choose. Fear is a state of mind who's keep you in an insecure state of mind. And if you let the fear take over, you lost track of whatever you have to do. But if you're afraid to empower yourself, and in the time you need it, you're in control of your fears, you're in the best word, because you prepare yourself rationally, intelligently, to whatever the problem can be. But at the time you surrender the whole fear to God, and be inspired to excel yourself.
I think that's a really good way to frame it, because I think a lot of times what people will do is they'll try to reject fear and push it aside. You know, when they're afraid to speak in public, or afraid to step onto that mat, or into that ring, or, you know, whatever, or, you know, talk with their wife about an issue they're having. They pretend as if they're not afraid, but you're not saying that. What you're saying is, no, I am afraid. It's an ally of mine, and I'm going to use that to train more, to be better prepared, and to create better opportunities for myself, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, because in order for you to be in your highest level of performance, no matter if it's physical or mental, you have to be afraid of making mistakes. You have to be afraid of not knowing something you should know. So you have to be prepared. The fear help you to prepare. But at one point, like for example, visualization. Visualization is a tool for you to put fear in perspective. That means I visualizing I'm going to fight somebody tomorrow who is 50 pounds heavier than me, 10 years. So in that visualization, I can see everything I could not do, my expectations, how I pretend to take the fight over or whatever. And then I visualizing a easy victory. I visualizing a hard victory. I visualizing a victory which I almost have it and I slipped to my hands and I lost by very small distance. I visualizing the fight. I get punched in the head, get passed out, and still like surviving dizzy, but still handle the fort until my dizziness get over and win. So I can picture many different ways to win. The difficult way, the easy way, the possible way. I can also think about losing the fight, and I can also think about dying trying to win the fight. So all those elements, even the ones I don't want it to happen, I already visualize. I already prepare myself for. So it's not going to be something I'm not expecting. It's something is in my ball game, in my way to see it, which is possible. So acceptance of death is a commitment I have with myself based on my reality. I don't see myself tapping. I see my brothers taking the towel to take me from the bad fight. But I don't go there to quit. Quit is not an option for me. So I'm going there to die trying. Like a Navy SEAL, when he goes for a mission, he has all the support, the friends, the things for him to go and complete the mission. But they know in their hearts something can go wrong and they can get shot and that kill. And that doesn't make them feel like afraid to do. They just accepting the fact they have to die trying. Is going to be honorable. It's going to be nice. It's going to be something they're not looking for, but they proud to be if the case happens. So there's no way for you put this guy to back out because he's not afraid to die trying whatever he has to do. So I put myself in the same group. My life was not as important than my mission. My mission of representing Jiu-Jitsu, my mission of being to the end in a fight is something which make me proud and happy, even though I can go for the terminal decision of killing myself. So that's something which make me feel happy to be able to accomplish.
That's an interesting take. Before you said that last part about and I can really resonate with what you're saying. My mission is more important than my life. I was going to ask you before you said that. I think it's easier for men to see how a Navy SEAL, for example, to use your example, would be willing to die for the cause. But I think it's harder for most men, even myself, to wrap my head around the idea of you getting into a match to fight somebody that you'd literally be willing to die in order to fight your hardest, to come out on top, to come out victorious. But you said your mission is more important than your life. How did you get to that point?
Because for me, maybe the 60% of my professional career, I fight people with no weight division, no time limits,
Right.
no set of rules. Can be on the asphalt, can be on the grass, can be on the cement. So the idea of being unpredictable take me to endless levels of worries and concerns. And fighting with a guy who's heavier than you, who's meaner, and who's trying to bang you against the asphalt with the head, you can get killed. So if I'm scared of the outcome, I cannot even think about trying. So I say, I don't give a shit if something happen with me. I'm worried, I'm concerned to do my mission. I'm very focused on doing what I have to do. So the idea of being free physically, spiritually, to do whatever you have to do and put yourself at risk is a commitment very few people has, very few professions have, because if you're a fireman, you have the problems to save a child from the 10th level of a building in fire. You can get killed trying. That's part of your job. And if you're not comfortable with that feeling, you should not be a fireman because you're just going to have to be prepared to do the task. So as you live your life, you start to build up under your circumstances. If you're a fireman, you're not going to be thinking like a nurse. But if if you're a doctor in a warfare, in a front war, you have to think a different mentality. You could be a doctor living in California, but you're a doctor living in Iran, or so your risks, the level of performance, the level of risks you have are different. So you have to be concerned, but you also have to be prepared and accepting all the things you choose for. So I don't say everybody has to be choosing be a champion and dying for whatever you believe. I say you should have a purpose, and with that purpose, you should put all your strategy to help you to achieve that purpose. And in few cases, the purpose can put you in a life-threatening situation. If you want to go to the Everest, if you want to do something crazy, you don't have to be in action, in a dangerous action. You can just fly from hang gliders or do something crazy. You can get killed. And everything you put in perspectives, you choose to do that because you motivated to do. So if you something happen, is important for you to in your mind accept that outcome because that's part of what you choose.
Yeah. Do you feel like with your family lineage and obviously the Gracie name, do you feel like you chose that purpose or that mission? Because I don't know if there's a family that I can think of, maybe in the realm of politics, some of these dynasties we hear of. I'm not sure I can think of a family that has built the type of legacy and lineage that your family has. And are those individual decisions or are those just heavily emphasized directives, if you will, of this is the way Gracies behave and this is what we do?
Yes, when you're born, I get my kimono before I get my diapers.
Right.
So you become already guided to belong to a family, to be part of a movement which is Jiu-Jitsu, self-defense. This kind of representation means a lot to us because if I don't believe in what I teach, how I can teach? So in order for me to teach confident, can survive, you can be protected for yourself from an attack, I have to put myself at front of the pack and say, if you want to try on me because let's see if you can hurt me. If you can hurt me, you can hurt my students. But if I can represent, if I can win, I'm in comfortable position to keep teaching my students, to keep representing the family and the legacy. So the idea of being a special Gracie is inflicted in all of us, but not all of us can represent because the reality is on the mat, one will win, the other one will lose. So I'm
Right.
comfortable with my ability on the mat since I have 6 years old and participate of my first competition. But other cousins and relatives, they don't have the same practice, they don't have the same ability, they don't have the same confidence. And I don't make them feel like, oh, you have to represent, go there, kill yourself. No, it's not like that. So as you grow as a Gracie, you start to put yourself in a chain of in a organized hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not up to the task, it's better keep training. It's better keep reinforcing. It's keeping teaching jiu-jitsu, but you're not able to fight. So I'm one of the few ones who are able to fight in a very early age. So I always been feeling like I'm the best I know in my age. I should represent the family. So that's my position to carry on my torch because I was able to do it. So I put myself with the commitment on the mission. But it's not exactly represents all the family members because some they feel like they not feel quite capable to do for many different reasons.
And it sounds like, based on what you're saying, those family members, at least by yourself, aren't looked down upon necessarily. You just feel like you're going to rise to the top when it comes to your ability to protect and fight, relative to somebody else might have a different skill set within your family.
Definitely, yes.
Do you feel like your diagnosis with Parkinson's disease has impacted your identity at all? Because it would be easy for me on the outside looking in to feel like you may have tied all of your identity and your ability to protect and fight up in being a fighter, if you will. For you might correct me on the term.
Yeah,
And then now all of a sudden you're diagnosed with a health condition that certainly physically limits you in your ability to fight combatively.
yeah, that's a great question because the Parkinson doesn't change me, change my abilities, change my mechanics, change my the way I deal with mobility. But I keep a water in my mind. And then I start to realize the tools I still using daily as a martial artist. And I get very motivated to pass this to others. Like in my second book, my idea is to how I can use Parkinson to inspire myself to do something. So now I'm focused on the invisible jiu-jitsu, which is related to breathing, which is related to strategy, which is related to hope and faith and some kind of other positions. Because the invisible jiu-jitsu is not there because you have to believe in what I'm saying, but you have to feel it, what I'm trying to say. So it's invisible because it's not in a picture you cannot see, but it's very, you're able to see, to feel the difference and say, wow, I make such a difference, have this and that instead this or that. So in that invisible jiu-jitsu give the sense of how empower people without the physicality. Because if you start to breathe properly, if you start to believe in proper things, if you start to understand the mechanics, you don't have to fight to win. Because in big part of my career, I was fighting to win. And that was something I'm proud and happy about it. But from that point in my life ahead, I have to win without a fight, which make me happy too in a different circumstances because I outsmart my opponents, I get a better conclusions, I make better decisions, I'm avoiding problems, I have better strategies to deal with my strategies. So I make myself more capable to use the invisible aspects of jiu-jitsu and still motivated to pass this to others. So I'm still a master, changing a little bit the perspective of my abilities, but very motivated to still inspire people and serve people in the way they need the most. And I feel like the invisible jiu-jitsu can be much more acceptable and usable for average people than actually the physical jiu-jitsu, which is demands from you your guts, your toughness, your competitiveness. So it's still good, build you up in a very good way, build your character, but you have to have the elements to enjoy the practice. But on the other hand, the invisible jiu-jitsu give you sense of self-defense, mobilities and angles for you to simplify your athleticism and maximize your effectiveness. Give you a sense of, I'm not a fighter, I never will be a fighter, but I can survive if guys try to choke me, or I can escape, or I can have a chance to keep my distance. So you start to using different elements to explore and get advantages, which means you don't have to fight to win, but you can win without a fight. Give you an example for that. You leaving from the movie theater with your wife and have a 10 minutes walk to the parking lot. But in the other way, you have 5 minutes shortcut through the alley. So as you get into the alley, you see a gang of bangers and tough guys and drinking and noisy and problems. So you're going to be smart to say, sweetheart, let's go back to the main street. Let's go walk the 10 minutes. You're going to be silly if you're a tough guy and say, let's go this way because I'm going to show I'm Rickson Gracie. I'm not afraid of nothing. Let's go. Right. And I can get killed. I can get stabbed. My wife can get problems. So I'm bringing problems to myself because sometimes I'm overconfident and over physical. So the idea of winning without a fight make you shortcut different situations, sometimes apologizing. Another day, a jiu-jitsu world champion get killed in a nightclub in Brazil with shot in the head. And the guy tried to just get his beer for purpose, because the guy already not liking the guy and try to kill the guy. So he give him a reason to fight. And as the guy start to fight, he gets shot and get killed. So the champion supposed to know more about martial arts. He's too much an athlete, but he's not a martial art, because martial arts will give you the sense to say, hey man, I'm sorry. Because he's a champion. He don't have to prove nothing to beat somebody on the street. But he can get stabbed from his friend. He can get 100 problems. He can get in jail if he get the guy beat the guy. So for him, it's not a smart idea to try to resolve the problem with his hands. And he proved that's right because he get killed. So if you say, oh man, I'm sorry, apologize, that's a beer you want, please bring another beer for the guy here. So if he can resolve the problem in a much gentle way, but because he has a big ego, because he has this idea of being able to destroy anyone he touches, sometimes he takes that hard mentality to the street, and he can get stabbed by a teenager with 14 years old who stabbed him on the back. So it's not fair. It's about being a martial artist and know how to prevent problems and know how to anticipate, because sometimes you have to fight to win, but sometimes you have to win without a fight.
Well, I like this distinction, and not only that, but ironically, I imagine that the invisible jiu-jitsu that you're talking about not only helps you with ordinary everyday life, but it probably actually makes you a better fighter too. You know, I think about somebody coming in, and I remember when I was a white belt and I went to my first 1 or 2 classes, and I've always been fairly athletic, and so I just thought I can just bully people. Yeah, I can just push them around, I can use my strength, and I can bully people. And I found out that, no, for me, learning to conserve my energy and be smart was going to be way more effective than just trying to wrestle people and fight people with my strength that maybe were not quite as strong as me, but certainly more talented or more skilled than I was. So that invisible jiu-jitsu serves, it's a principle. It serves broadly rather than just one application.
Yes. I feel like the invisible jiu-jitsu is the part of jiu-jitsu who give you more sense of being a martial artist. Because the physicality of jiu-jitsu is very sportive, it's very dynamic, but it's simple. You just becomes an athlete. And martial arts is different because you have to put a lot of things in perspective, you know. And I believe the warrior or the spiritual warrior has to have the tools of martial arts. Patience in one of them, strategy, some positions, for example, like base. Base is something very important for jiu-jitsu. Create the idea of being base. But base is mobile. You cannot keep the same base for different positions. You have to have adapt your base to adjust. So base represents balance. But base also represents when you're in an argument with somebody, you can talk about jiu-jitsu, you can talk about podcasts, but sometimes you don't know about astrology or physics. So if you don't have base in physics, you have to shut up and listen. So that's a good teaching from the martial arts perspective. The base can be a metaphor for life. How much base I have to talk about this? How much base I have to keep my reason on that subject? So base can be physical or can be mental or can be emotional. So breathing help you to deal a big deal of your life, because when you're born and get slapped on your butt and you think you're already breathing well and ready for life, but you're not. You're learning how to breathe with your shallow breath. That's very emotional, very claustrophobic. And you cannot handle pressure. You cannot handle high levels of activity through the shallow breath. In the modern tennis today, you see guys, because they breathe properly for the motions they do. Like boxers, they have to do. Jiu-jitsu guys, they have to excel all the time. So When I learned how to breathe, was a big universe happens to me. I get at least 40% of better approach to deal with my opponents, my mind, my heart than I was before. And I always been an athlete, but after learning how to breathe properly was a huge difference in my life. So that's invisible. You cannot see, but you can feel it. Base, leverage, connection. Connection, for example. The same way you can connect with your opponent and anticipate a throw or something. You get into a place, you connect with the environment. Say, oh, this is bad energy here. I don't like this ambient. I'm going to leave this. So connection, allowed yourself to connect with, when you shake somebody's hand and the guy give you a soft hand, like not squeezing. So as you grab his hand, you say, well, this guy has something wrong. He not even grab my hand with certainty, with belief. So the connection means from the way you look somebody, you have to connect and you have to use your intuition too. So a lot of invisible elements, they're supposed to be there to help you as a martial artist. So if you are just an athlete, you're just thinking about the escape, the solution, the choke. But if you're a martial artist, you try to see the whole picture, see the sense of humor, see the nervous breakdown, see the anticipation, see the claustrophobic feelings. So the idea of being a martial arts give you the sense of you cannot let anything unattended or unsupervised. You have to see all the elements and see if it's better for you to apologize or for you to complain or if it's to accept or if so the idea of being responsive, the idea of using the elements of invisible tools of the invisible warrior supposed to be present all the time in your life.
It is interesting. I've noticed that when you're training with somebody, you can tell a lot about a person just by spending 2 minutes on the mat with them.
Yes.
You know, you can tell if they're if they're used to bullying and getting their way and it doesn't work on the mats. Or you can tell if they're passive and weak and scared and it won't work. Or if they're just trying to be totally tactical without any level of strength, it probably won't work. Like, it's such a well-rounded thing, and you can start to extrapolate and isolate what are the deficiencies in other people and also what are the deficiencies in you.
100% agree with that, because there's no way for you to hide yourself on the mat, because there everybody dresses the same, everybody puts the belt around the waist, and you have to prove yourself every day. You have to show yourself calm enough, smart enough, technical enough, resilient enough with your heart. If you're a coward, you're going to show. If you're aggressive, you're going to show. So there's no way for you to hide your emotions in your personality, because in one point you're going to get desperate. In one point you're going to get claustrophobic. In one point you're going to get agony. And all this has to be, you have to show. And sometimes a strong guy with ugly face could cry like a baby, and a very small guy can be resilient as a tough guy and never quit and very optimistic about success. So I see all the demonstrations of personalities in the mat, and I feel like Jiu-Jitsu start to put you in the perspective of, like, in the realistic universe, see what is missing there for you. You know, you say, I get too nervous. I lost coordination. When I get problems, I shook myself and I could not do. Or I was having the opportunity and I didn't catch. Was a lack of timing and sharpness to be aggressive. I don't have the killer instinct. So many problems can happen. And you start to, by practice, build yourself under this kind of realistic ground, which favors you in a tremendous way to improve, because it's for real. So if you stick with the practice, you're going to get a better person. You're going to get sharper. You're going to get calmer. You're going to get, so it's beneficial, but it's hard for you to keep going in this pursuit.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Well, one of the things in the book that I really stood out to me was the chapter where you talk about feeling and not thinking. And I've seen a lot of people try to think their way through situations or circumstances, or maybe even overthink to the point where they don't take action. And what I liked about in the book is you're talking more about just the intuition that I think so many men, they don't consider, or they don't put enough weight or emphasis behind your intuition in just feeling things. Like, for example, you had just said earlier, you know, being in an environment where it feels like there's bad energy. Like, you don't need to look around and think. If you're feeling it, something's telling you, whether it's God or you're some sort of sixth sense that we might have, something is telling you this is not a good environment, and you don't need to think about it. You already feel it. So just accept it and find a different way home.
Yes, I agree. People have sometimes the idea of not using the intuition, not respecting their intuition. And I believe through breathing, through an idea of meditation, you increase that potential because you become more quiet inside and you're able to hear what is the word have to offer with more perfection. So the idea of intuition, I really respect my intuition. I really obey my subconscious when they command something for me. I'm not take nothing for granted. So the idea I have about people can even change immediately based on the experience I live. So I can have a profound admiration for somebody. If I met him today and I see him sitting on the table for lunch, and the waiter come and serve him water, and he don't even look into the guy and not say thank you, I'm gonna get an impression from the guy. You know, this guy is a very smart, very important, very rich, but he don't have gratitude in his heart. He not thank you for the guy who give him water. He thinks he needs to be served without saying thank you. You know, so that's a problem. I by his personal attitudes, I can maybe downgrade my admiration for the guy just based on how he responds to a waiters, or how he say thank you for his employee, or if he don't say nothing. So the idea of analyzing people give me the sense of I have to be on top of what I should do with this guy because he showed me this and that. So I don't want to be aggressive, but I have to make him understand I don't agree with him. So my intuition give me the sense where I should not be blind and respect the guy just because he's famous, just because he's rich, just because he has power. For me, he has to be not a tyrant, but a leader. He has to be something who inspires me to follow him. And if something goes wrong, I lost my ability to admire the guy, I will respect that, and I will follow my intuition to not follow him anymore, or not. So my intuition guide me to the points I feel like energy is very important, very relevant to myself. Positive energy, negative energy. So all this makes account for me to know what I'm gonna do next and how I'm gonna. In terms of business and contracts, it's not about the contract you sign with people. It's about who you sign contracts with. So no matter what you put in the paper, things can be changed, turn over, and you can be in a problem. So that's why you have to have the intuition to relate yourself and negotiate yourself with people you can trust, people you feel like, regardless the paper, gonna give you a sense of respect and equally and being good. So for me, I obey my intuition more than anything.
So with regards to that, I think a lot of the times it's easy to conflate your intuition with fear. And so your intuition might be saying, hey, be careful. And so if you listen to it that way, you might back out of, let's say, a lucrative financial investment, for example. But really all it wasn't really your intuition telling you something was off. It was just a level of fear that you had because maybe you're investing more than you would typically be comfortable with. So how do you differentiate between when your intuition is telling you something is truly off and you're just afraid because you're in a new realm of life?
Yes, you can make intelligent conclusions. You can be rational. And all this has to be part of your ultimate strategy. You cannot let reason out of the loop. You cannot let
Mm.
so you have to keep everything in perspective. And the end of the whole picture, you have to have something which is the touch of God in it. So I have all the elements to say yes, but you know what? I'm gonna pass that. I'm gonna say no. I have all the elements to say no, but my gut feelings say I should invest on this because this can give me some. So, in other hands, you have to obey your intuition after all the conclusions, after all the reasons, after all these emotions, after all the fear. Your intuition have to guide you over the fear because, again, your intuition has to have courage. To be intuitive, you have to be courageous. You cannot be a coward. Cowards doesn't have intuition. They have fear.
Mm.
Courageous
And I
people,
also, oh, go
they,
ahead.
they accept the fear as a lie and they control the fear. And then they, on top of this control, say, now what? I should go this way or that way. And then in my hands, I say, I should hold today because tomorrow is going to. So whatever decisions I make with my intuition coming out after all the reasons, all the subjects, all the strategies are made.
Yeah, I like that you're talking about being well-rounded. So you're not relying too heavily on your intuition and forgetting the rational side of your brain and approach that, I think about it, for example, in the context of love. It's easy to fall in love with people. I hear from guys every single day who are like, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. And I'm like, well, what about these 4 or 5 things that person's not in alignment with what you want? Well, it doesn't matter because I'm in love. Well, it kind of actually matters. You can
Yes,
love a person who has values and ideals and dreams that are completely antithetical to yours. You ought to take that side into consideration too. But then on the flip side, I see a lot of people who see all these red flags in a potential significant other and they just completely ignore them and do it anyways. And it's like, well, what about all those red flags? Oh, we'll work through that. No, you won't work through that.
yeah,
You can't work through that, but you're not listening to your intuition. You're just doing it anyways.
yes. I feel like you have the reasons to get doubts about something, but you sometimes say, no, my pleasure or my desire is bigger than my doubts. So
Mm,
you not respect your intuition. You're not respecting your profound ability to have to live with because you think things gonna change as they get older or people gonna change, but it's not like that. People don't change much. So if you see a lack of something you don't agree in the beginning of the relationship, you should not insist on that. You should be reasonable enough to accept there are difference and you can maybe talk with the difference and see how willing people to change. But if you feel like it's hardcore to make the change, you have to accept this is not going to be a long-term relationship. It has to be something fun, but it has like a terminal state because you're not going to be able to live the rest of your life under this insecure or uncomfortable state.
Ironically, I think a lot of those relationships like that, where they stay with a person, are fear driven. For example, it might be, well, I don't know if I could find somebody else, and I'm afraid to be alone. Maybe they won't even voice that, but subconsciously, it's all coming from a place of fear, is where it's coming from.
Yeah, sometimes I don't want to lose my house.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so those are the negative fears, because the first important thing for you is to feel yourself in charge of your own destiny and in control of your own way. So if the problem is the house, give the house to the wife and start to a brand new life and a different thing and trying to buy another house, trying to find yourself happy in a different way because people get to sometimes too attached to money or to finances or to status or to what you look like posting the internet. There's a lot of ego driving situations which doesn't translate the reality of your life. So it's important to
Yeah.
be honest with yourself and be willing to renegotiate everything, any point, then just stay fixed on the deal because you don't want to regret. It's too hard to train to change now. Let's keep like this. I prefer to be unhappy in the house than happy outside. So people start to making poor conclusions, and that's very sad.
It leads a little bit into, I think, the chapter where you talk a lot about rules of engagement. And I think that's important because I've seen a lot of men who will, maybe to go to another example with women specifically, is guys will, you'll hear them say, oh, I got caught up in the moment. And then they end up, for example, cheating on their spouse or the person they love. I think it's really crucial that we figure out some rules in which we're going to operate before we're emotionally or mentally or physically compromised. What do you say about that chapter when it comes to rules of engagement?
I feel like in any situation, regardless if it's business, if it's emotional, the idea of engaging is something which we have to focus on not only the actual emotions, but you have to also engage reasonably, to become rational about it, to become philosophical about it, because the engagement has parts, has the physical part, has the emotional, mental part, and has the spiritual part. So for me, I've been seeking to get this balance between my spiritual, my physical, and my mental. And that balance requires from me stay aligned with people who has the same ability to looking for that. So relationships are made with common things to be like, for example, if I go engage with somebody, I'm an athlete, I have a very much restrict kind of life, my nutrition values, so the time I have to sleep, my workouts. So I have everything structured. I find a beautiful girl who who loves me dearly, who make great love with me. We are in passion, but at this point, she loves to go at night every night. She smokes cigarettes, and she's go all the time to traveling a lot. So I can see this pattern is not going to fit on my on what I need to rely on the stability of my relationship. So with that being said, I have to be reasonable and create a situation where okay, we can make the rules of engagement is no commitment, let's have fun. Whenever you are available in the city, we can go out. Whenever I avail, I can go out with you. But if I'm traveling, if you're traveling, we have no strings attached. We can do whatever. So it's an open relationship. That's okay. But I cannot expect having a tight relationship, a loyal, respectful relationship, focus on people in my life, which is she not. So I can adjust that relationship to a short term, just have fun for tonight. I can give a medium relationship. Okay, let's have fun every time we're here, and find ourselves meeting in this country or whatever. Or I can have some tight relationship where the lady gonna live with me, and we're gonna have kids and we're gonna have family. But as I decide to make family with this, I have reasonably the idea of putting her as the center of my life and not having the engagement with her and allowed myself to be free other side. So it becomes like fuzzy. So the idea of being loyal, the idea of being honest, the idea of being uh, focused and putting the women at the center of my life has this rules of engagement coming from the sense of respect, love, companionship, and so on. So depending how I treat my partner, how I treat myself is the kind of rules of engagements I will be looking for.
Yeah, it sounds like when you're talking about rules of engagement that it's mostly your own set of standards, even expectations that you have of a relationship, whether it's business or romantic. And then also, I think the important component that you're talking about here too is communicating. You know,
Yes.
if you have rules of engagement and you want a relationship, for example, to go to one way, but you haven't clearly articulated that to the other person, then you're not being respectful to them and giving them an opportunity to decide if their rules of engagement are aligned with yours. I mean, I think about that in combat sports or football or any sporting event. The rules of engagement are so clearly stated that both sides of the competition have decided to bring a third party into the competition to ensure that the rules of engagement we agreed upon are followed. So it is really important that everybody knows the rules. Otherwise, it's just not fair to the other person.
Yes, and people sometimes they engage without the rules, just for the superficial emotion, just for the look on the eyes, just because the smell. They thinking about the relationship, but they in a very shallow way. So, and then that's will basically be destroyed in a very quick, situation. Any scenario which is not anticipated can be destroying the relationship because you're not there to make it happen, to make it work. You're there because you need this or that from your partner. So that's completely uh, out of purpose.
Yeah. Well, Rickson, I appreciate the book. It's called Comfort in Darkness. I read it. It's phenomenal, and I would encourage other people to read it too. Obviously, we're just scratching the surface on what is available. Can you let the guys know where to pick up a copy of the book and then also how to connect with you?
Yes, this book will be launched by HarperCollins. Going to be a national launch on the I think 14th of November, and I hope people love it because I did not make this for martial artists. I make this for average people who think who can think like a champions and be able to resolve their problems or make maximizing their capacity to resolve. So I'm very inspired with this book. I hope people enjoy it. And I'd like to thank you, Ryan, for the help and everything.
Of course. Of course. Well, I'll be keeping an eye on you and obviously we'll be in touch. I'm very interested in your fight that you have. I think you said I saw a quote somewhere, maybe I'm misrepresenting it, but you said this is the last fight of your life or something. I think I remember seeing. Is that right? Did I read that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure this is going to be the last, but that's one I'm going to take to the end of my days because I've tried to beat this condition, and I'm inspired to do so. And in the meantime, I'm very happy to still practice invisible jiu-jitsu and show people how important for them is to grow in a holistic way for body, mind, and spirit. So I'm very happy. Thank you, my
Awesome. Well, I
brother.
know you're going to help a lot of people in the process. Thank you for joining me today.
Have a good one, man. God bless.